5 years ago, I was living a pretty fun, thank you, and adventurous life. I was teaching outdoor education and leadership, and I was leading hiking and mountaineering trips for up to a month. It was a pretty good life. I spent my working time outside. I didn't have to worry about emails or social media, and I also got to eat a inappropriate amount of cheese without judgment, which was really nice. So one of the things I saw when I was teaching outdoor education and spending time in the mountains is the impact that the climate crisis was having on our natural and human systems. It was not uncommon to be hiking in the tundra and to be coming up to a valley and expecting to see a small pocket glacier in this valley, and for it to exist on the map but no longer exist in the landscape. I remember one time hiking on a large glacier. My coworker asked me to, asked me to check the elevation on the GPS, and the glacier had melted 100 meters in thickness since the map was printed. This also changed the way that we looked at the way we managed risk in the backcountry. We now, in the Pacific Northwest, in the area we're in as well too, we had to worry about extreme heat, which we never had to worry about in the past, and wildfire smoke and poor air quality, which in the past was never much of an issue, was now becoming an occurrence every summer. On top of this, the young people that I was working on the trip with, I could really see the impact that the climate crisis was having on their lives. They knew the science, they knew that they were inheriting an uncertain future, and they saw that there was no clear pathway forward. So I came to the conclusion that no amount of fried cheese could keep me from ignoring this existential threat. So now I'm working for Youth Climate Corps, and most of my work is focused on developing, designing, and implementing community climate action projects. And I've learned a couple of things. One is that the climate crisis is very messy. It's complicated, it's siloed, and communities are really trying to figure out how to make it work. And the second piece is that there's actually a lot of lessons that I've learned from teaching outdoor education that I'm able to apply into our home communities. When running these trips, these expeditions, there's a couple things that we have to keep in mind. One is we have to be aware of the hazards and the exposure to the hazards and how they're changing. The second is we have to be aware of the sensitivity of the community and how they're going to react to these hazards. And the third piece is that we have to build leadership within the community, especially young leadership, to be successful on the expedition. So what does a day in the life of an outdoor educator look like? Well, you can have the best day of your working life and the worst day of your working life, sometimes in the same trip, and sometimes it feels like it's in the same day. You have to manage a variety of hazards and factors like the weather, the route, the people on the trip, the way that the group is bonding, and their goals. And you have to balance all those factors. So, for example, we might be coming up on a high mountain pass the group has decided that they want to explore. As we're approaching, the weather changes. Now, myself, as a 20-year-old who is getting used to the mountains and is full of testosterone and confidence, I probably would have said, yeah, let's push ahead, let's go it, the consequences don't matter, and I'll probably end up coming home quite cold and miserable, and my friends might not want to go hiking with me anymore. But once you become a professional as a guide or as an educator, you have to take these decisions a lot more seriously. And unless your group is very competent and they have a strange affection for suffering, you're going to want to take the low elevation route. Now, one of the things with outdoor education is the consequences that you face are often dramatic and they are quick. And so you learn a lot. It's a very potent learning environment. The issue with the climate crisis in our communities is that the consequences are slower and they're not as obvious. And so the leaders in our communities and the communities ourselves, we sometimes take time to understand what the consequences are and how we need to manage them. And so this is another piece that I've been able to take with this. So that is a strong importance here is really understanding the hazards and understanding how the exposure to the hazard has changed. So it's not enough to understand how to navigate steep terrain or how to read a map, but you have to know how to set yourself up for success. So here we have a group crossing a glacier river in Alaska, and you can see it looks like a cold, drizzly day. So how are you going to be set up for this crossing? Well, for one, you probably want to have a belly full of food, maybe a bit of extra cheese for courage. You're going to want to be well hydrated, have a good night's sleep, and you're going to want to make sure that the people you're crossing this river with, you trust and you know, and you have the same common language. The same thing is true in our communities. We have to be set up for success for hazards if they come our way. So I'll use an example of a CBC study where they put sensors in 10 apartments across Toronto. And they found that 8 out of these 10 apartments were above 26 degrees for the majority of the summer. 26 degrees Celsius is not considered a safe living environment. So these people, first of all, they can't thrive and they can't live a good life, a prosperous life in this space. And this is why the climate crisis is known as a risk multiplier. If an other crisis comes, they're not going to be set up for success. If a flood happens, if there's more extreme heat, they're already not set up. So it's really important that in a community in the backcountry and a community in our homes, we know who is in our community and the circumstances that they're in. So that's why, for example, on a trip, we'll make sure that we read medical forms ahead of time, right? Another thing that we'll do on trip is at the beginning of the trip, we'll pack our packs. And we don't pack our bags based on everybody having the same weight. We pack our bags based on everybody having a similar percentage of the weight. So myself, I'm 180 pounds. I'm not going to carry the same weight as somebody who's 130 pounds. I'll carry more weight. And it's not because I'm a stand-up guy, even though I will take that praise. It's because we have to make sure that we're setting ourselves up to succeed as a group. So if somebody is carrying more weight than they can, they're going to be more prone to injury. They're not going to be able to hike as well on the trail, and they're probably going to be grumpy at the end of the day. Also, I may be wanting to have other people take more weight throughout the trip as well too. Maybe I have a gastrointestinal issue, or I roll my ankle or something like that. So there's a way that as a community we can look out for each other. So you can have the best trail, beautiful trail, really good food, good weather. If you're on a trip in a community that frankly doesn't like each other or doesn't understand how to communicate with each other, it's not going to be an enjoyable expedition, and you're going to be set up for failure. So leadership is really the key thing here. We have the exposure to the hazards, the sensitivity of the community, and then we have the leadership that needs to lead the community in the right direction. So I want all you folks to think about the first time you were in a group or community where somebody asked you for advice or somebody trusted you for a decision. That is such a potent learning space, and that is something that we really need to be bringing into our communities back home. We need to be making sure that young people are part of the democratic process and they are brought in to the work that is happening. This is Leanna. She was part of the initial Vancouver Youth Climate Corps program, and this photo was taken after she spoke truth to power to the Vancouver City Council, which is, I would say, a fairly intimidating thing to do. And she told them about the climate crisis, how it impacted her life, and how the Youth Climate Corps had impacted her life as well. What studies show is that when young people are given the opportunity, or not just young people, but anybody, when they're given the opportunity to make change in their community, they are much more likely to be a part of this change in the future. And we've seen this with Leanna as well, too. She's continued working in climate space. She was part of our youth committee and is now interested in joining our board, which to have a 20-year-old want to join a board, I will say, is quite remarkable. Yeah. So now we have to think about how we run projects, programs, what we can do to combine minimizing exposure, improving the sensitivity of the community, and building leadership. So this is the Youth Climate Corps program that was running in Nelson in 2022. They did a deep energy retrofit on a long-term care home for adults with developmental disabilities. So they added insulation, they reframed windows and doors, and they improved the building envelope. So what was the outcome of this? Well, for one, the residents immediately commented that the building was more comfortable and not as hot. So right over there you have immediately reduction of the hazard. It reduced the cost to the nonprofit who's running the building. and it reduced emissions, importantly. And lastly, it gave the young people exposure to what is a good, prosperous career in the trade, something that aligns with their values and something that is going to pay them well. And this is a really critical part when we're thinking about the sensitivity in the communities. We really need all the jobs and the prosperity that is going to be created from a transition to a low carbon economy and from adapting our communities to extreme heat. We need to make sure that people in our community are benefiting from those jobs. So there's a really big opportunity here. Oops, I'll keep it there then. So there's a lot of organizations that are doing really powerful work in our communities. There's local governments, there's First Nations, there's community organizations and groups and community groups, and they are doing similar work to what produces a really good expedition, right? They're creative, they're collaborative, they lead with action, and I want everybody here to think about their pathway to how they can support bettering their communities through climate resilience, right? Is it volunteering for a local organization? Is it learning about a nation that has been on land since time immemorial and has thrived in this place? Is it bringing your neighbor muffins, right? Which is a critical climate adaptation piece. Is it looking out for your elderly neighbor during extreme heat? There's a lot of work to be done, and I encourage you folks to think about what's your passion, what are you good at, and what the community needs, and really how you can do that. So similar to an expedition, we need this collaboration, we need this leadership, and we need this action, and together we can really work to better our communities and climate resilience. Thank you.